Hey guys, it's Charlie, and today is Monday on Pagan Perspective. I'm filling in for Annie, and today we're going to be talking about self-harm under the Rede. So, the topic this week is extremely interesting, and it hits home for me. It's something that when I read the topic, I was like, oh man, why wasn't that on Subs Week? And then shortly thereafter, Annie sent out an email to all of us saying, you know, I don't really have much experience in this. If there's anyone out there who wants to take this, who has more experience, you're more than welcome to. So I jumped on it. But what the topic is a question from Sleuth, who... I can't say that, I'm sorry, I don't know what the name is. Something Chick 666. And she writes, I know a number of people who follow the Rede, and they say that the not hurting people extends to yourself, but that hurting yourself when depressed, even if it's not under your control, is against the Rede and thus kind of sinful, in quotations. Your opinion. So, that's a topic that sort of hits. So, what this person is asking is, you know, if you are wicked and you follow that, which that's one of like the only laws of Wicca, or the only rules, is just make sure that you harm no one. And I believe it does extend to the self. Even if you are, say, staying in an abusive relationship, although you're not directly contributing to your harm, you are indirectly allowing that harm to continue happening to yourself, thus you are not fulfilling that Wiccan Rede. But this is going even further, meaning self-destructive self-mutilation and purposeful self-mutilation, whether it's intentional or whether you are in a state of mind, a fragmented emotional state of mind where you do not realize what you were doing. Does that go against the Wiccan Rede? In short, I would say yes. It does. And honestly, I would hope that someone who is practicing Wicca or practicing a form of spirituality has a better outlet for their pain than self-mutilation. Self-mutilation comes in all different forms. Hitting oneself. I've heard of people punching themselves in the head. Even like reckless drug use and alcohol use could be self-mutilation. But the most common and most publicized form of self-mutilation, before you actually get to that point of suicide, is cutting. And I was a cutter. Now, this is something that's kind of hard for me to talk about, but I knew when Annie offered up that topic that I needed to do it. But the reason it's difficult for me to talk about is not because I'm ashamed for myself, or that I have placed guilt on myself or shame on myself, but that I'm afraid that those out there who perceive me and have an opinion of me will place shame on me or think, oh, that poor girl. I don't want that. Cutting was something that I chose to do. I chose consciously to do it, and it was a stupid choice. So, as far as the actual question, I want to make sure that I touch on all the points. I do believe that it does extend to oneself, and I explained that already. And if it's not under your control, does that still, I mean, if you're not within control of yourself when that happens, if you're not in control of your actions, and if you get to a place that you are so tormented and so under so much turmoil and terror and fear and sadness and just so depressed that you cannot consciously make out what is happening and what you are doing, and you cannot consciously, what's the word I'm looking for, interpret your own actions, I urge you to seek help. Whether it's help from a friend, from a parent, from the school guidance counselor, or from a psychologist or psychiatrist, I urge you to seek help, because that is not, emotionally and spiritually, I'm telling you that behavior is unhealthy, and it's unsafe, because if you're not cutting to the point of potentially dying of blood loss, you can also risk the potential of infections and, you know, a dirty razor blade and getting infected and tetanus and all that stuff. So I urge you, if it's to the point where you are not consciously aware of what you are doing, and you have blackout periods and you wake up with cuts all over yourself, please stop watching this video right now and call the helpline, either the suicide helpline or a friend and discuss this, because that is something that needs, you need help, and it's not your fault, and it doesn't make you a bad person or what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't make you any less of a human being. What would make you more in the wrong, although I don't believe in the concept of right and wrong, is not getting help and allowing yourself to still continue dwelling in that pain and misery. So please, if it's the case where you consciously are not aware of what you are doing, please get help. So that's what I'll say on that part. The other word that was chosen here is sinful. Is it sinful? I don't believe in sin. I just said I don't believe in the concept of right and wrong. Things just are. It is. It simply is. We choose to experience. We're here specifically to experience. We choose our own experiences, and we choose how to perceive our experiences. Okay, sorry about that. I had to go attend to my child. So I think what I was talking about was I don't believe in the concept of right and wrong. Everything just simply is. We're here to experience. All that stuff I was talking about. So I don't believe in sin. I don't believe in the God and Goddess judging for people doing things that aren't right, because I don't believe in the concept of right and wrong. I mean, I believe in the concept of right and wrong as far as society's standards, but as far as, and as far as like my own personal ethics, yes. But as far as judgment goes, which is, sin is all tied into judgment, I don't believe in that. So I don't believe in the concept of sin. Which is probably why I'm pagan, but, and not Christian. So as far as that goes, do I have an opinion on that? Yes, I don't believe that it's sinful. However, from a spiritual standpoint, and as far as the ethics of Wicca, I believe that harming oneself physically or mentally or emotionally or however, if you are constantly having negative thoughts about yourself and beating yourself up and constantly just dragging yourself down, I do believe that that will hinder the growth process. And I believe that one of the reasons that the Rede is in place is to allow people the ability to expand and grow in their spirituality. So when I hear of someone practicing Wicca or any form of paganism or nature-based and positive religion where there isn't a concept of sin attached, I suppose, even when there is, if there's a form of spirituality that is truly filling to your soul, to me it seems almost unnatural for one to need to release anger and grief and sadness and depression through physical or emotional self-mutilation. And what I guess the question I would pose would be, if someone is still at that point where they're still attached to that ego and they're still, it's very hard to put what I'm thinking into words. Basically, I have no desire, no urge to cut anymore. It's a distant memory. And the reason that it's a distant memory and the reason I have no urge is because I found my spirituality, and I refound my spirituality through Wicca, which then branched out and broadened into just paganism in general. And if someone is practicing something that makes them feel whole and makes them feel just blissful and happy and aware of their own awareness and their own consciousness, I can't understand how one would be so depressed or so angry that they would cause themselves harm. And I guess the prime example would be Eckhart Tolle, one of my favorite authors. He's awesome. Up until he was nearly 30, I believe, maybe even into his mid-30s, but I want to say into his late 20s, he was suicidal. And he writes about it in the book The Power of Now, and how he came to this grand transformation, this spiritual transformation. But after he was able to grasp and learn and attach himself to his spirituality and find his spirituality, all of that went away and his life completely transformed. So if someone is practicing something, and it's different for everyone, everyone's practice is different, and everyone's called to different religions specifically that are going to help their soul. So if someone is embracing their spirituality, I feel like spirituality should be a cure to that torment inside. And if it's not, or if it's not of the soul and of the emotional level, and if it is really like a mind problem where you're not aware of what you're doing and it's a chemical imbalance, then that needs to be regulated with other means. And there are natural ways to do it, and there are also medications and things that can be prescribed to alleviate that. But to keep this video from going off very long, I used to be a cutter, and I did it for me. There are specific reasons that people cut. So the first reason is that they are so emotionally numb that the only way that they can feel anything is to physically harm themselves and watch the blood run out. Some people talk about how it makes them feel alive, seeing the blood ooze out of their body. And that's one of the common reasons for cutting. Another common reason is because they're so overwhelmed with emotional pain. They distract themselves by causing themselves physical pain. And by watching the blood, it's almost like it's sort of like bloodletting, and the whole concept of bloodletting and ancient concepts of when you bleed is letting the demons out. It's sort of like that, where by watching that blood run out, it's almost cleansing to them, almost ritualistic in a way. Another reason that people cut is obviously for attention. I did know a lot of people who cut for attention, and that I think is just silly. And then the final reason that I actually was, the reason I cut was as a punishment to harm, or as a punishment for myself. And that is probably the worst, because I was consciously making the choice, I am going to deface my body. I'm going to punish myself for being fat and ugly and stupid, and I'm going to make myself as ugly on the outside as I feel on the inside. And that's just no good at all, because I was consciously thinking to myself these bad things and consciously choosing to feel that pain. And the suffering ends at some point, whether you go your entire life suffering and it ends when you die. Excuse me, I burped, I'm sorry. Or whether you choose to end the suffering during your lifetime while you still have a chance to experience life without suffering. And if you need any guidance on how to end the suffering, or where suffering comes from, Buddhism is an amazing resource and an amazing path that focuses a lot on the aspect of human suffering and when and how the path to enlightenment can ease and eventually completely banish all of that suffering. So for me, when I cut, it wasn't for attention. I specifically put the cuts in places that people couldn't see. I cut myself on my inner thigh, and for a long time I wouldn't wear bikinis because you could see the scars. Since then, they've lightened and gone almost away, but I still have some major scars on my arm from a time that I did kind of go through that. Don't really know consciously what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, but I can't control myself. I had some really emotionally devastating news hit me, and the only way that I knew how to ease my pain was to cut myself. So the three big ones I did on my own. I did them in a period of a complete, did not know I didn't know how to get rid of all of that anger and pain inside of me. And the only way I knew how to do it was just, I instinctively grabbed a knife that was nearby and I just, and obviously the point was not to try to kill myself. I just wanted to cut. I didn't know it was going to be that deep. I probably should have had stitches, but I didn't, and I wore long sleeve shirts for that entire year. I have, since been able to embrace my scars in a way, because it does remind me of a period of my human suffering and what I went through, and the fact that I've overcome it and I've grown past that. And the last time I cut, I think I was 18 or 19. And obviously, I'm not sure if you could hear Nozomi out there laughing, but one of the big reasons, other than my spirituality, that I stopped was my daughter Nozomi. She fills me with so much joy and happiness in life, and any parent will tell you that when they are sad or upset about something, holding their child is comforting to them. It's like children have this like healing aura about them, and just being near them and holding them and just being with them is healing. So she's a big motivator for me to keep myself in check emotionally. But over the years, it's become easier and easier. It wasn't easy at first, and I it was before I was even pregnant with her that I stopped. But at first it was, I did have to make a conscious effort, like, no, I'm not going to cut because it's stupid. And as far as spirituality ties in, that is a big reason. That's another big reason. Probably the biggest reason, even before Nozomi's effect on me, the biggest reason for me to be able to filter, for lack of a better word, my emotions. Not filter as in block, but filter as in let them flow through me in a healthy way. Let myself experience those emotions and observe those emotions, but don't let those emotions overtake me, because my awareness conquers my emotions. I am not my emotions. So when someone gets to a point in their spirituality, I think that any desire whatsoever to harm themselves in any way, shape, or form, that desire just is completely out the window. It's not even an option anymore. And I think that spirituality, and in some cases religion, can be a very therapeutic method, especially with people who are suffering from either chemical imbalances or depression, anxiety, things of that nature, because especially with paganism and Eastern practices of meditation, that's just a way to kind of direct that energy elsewhere. And instead of letting it just fester up inside of you and explode in an unhealthy way, we learn the ability to just be able to direct and harness that energy and use it for good. So that's what my challenge is for any viewers out there who are practicing Wicca or paganism, and who have a spiritual base but are still cutting. My challenge for you guys would be to try to redirect that energy into a more creative outlet or a more productive outlet, instead of one that is self-defeating, because that is a miserable way to live. And thank you, Annie, so much for letting me take this topic, because being able to reach out to people who are still in that mindset and still prisoners in their own minds, in their own bodies, being able to reach out and offer words from someone who's gone through it instead of someone who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. I've gone through it, and being able to reach out and hopefully help someone who's going through that is very fulfilling to me, and it helps me kind of get over my own insecurities about what I did in the past. So thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all. Blessed be.